It's a place where you can go to escape and do something by yourself to get better for yourself.
I've never had the outcome that I want when I'm worried about what everyone else is doing in life or literally in a race. All I had to do was finish and I would have been top 5 going to the games.
I'm weak, Michaela. Like, this is embarrassing.
What does fitness mean to me now that I'm not competing? Okay, whatever it is that felt like the end of the world when I walked in here, now I feel like I can handle it a little bit easier.
What up, guys? I'm excited for this one. We've got Michaela North.
Hello.
Who is by far a better athlete than I am. And that's what I'm excited to talk about.
I saw your golf bag, so I don't know. Maybe it depends on the sport.
Golf's easy, though. But like when you got to run, you got to lift weights, like that's way harder, you know? So we'll dive into a lot of stuff. Like what I'm excited to have you. Thank you for coming on. But there's a lot of stuff like, you know, being an athlete in college. What was that like? You know, what you're doing now, being part of the CrossFit Games, like excited to hear about that stuff. But my podcast always overviews like people's lives, right? Where'd you come from? How'd you get started? What was the family dynamic? Did that get you into leading to coming, you know, here to Utah? I guess kind of dive into your family dynamic and what growing up and where you came from and what that was like.
So I am from Tri-Cities, Washington. Most people don't know where it is. Actually, surprisingly, people do here in Utah. Yeah. I don't know why, but so it's Eastern Washington on the Columbia River. Okay. And I am the younger middle child of 4. I've got 2 older brothers and a younger sister. Yeah. And I'm close to all of them. And yeah, we grew up in Tri-Cities, specifically Kennewick, Washington. I lived in the same house until I was 16. And then my parents built a house like one town over, but same high school. Yep. Same friends growing up. Yep.
What's it like there? Like, I've only lived in Utah, Michaela, so you got to give me some context on what it's like there.
It's dry. Yeah. But Utah dryness is different, but it's like more extreme. So summers are really hot. 110 is normal, definitely over 90 in the summers. And then winter, it gets really cold and there's a lot of tumbleweeds. I thought it was, I thought I knew what a mountain was before I came to Utah, and turns out that I didn't. Those were hills.
That's hilarious.
But the Columbia River is really beautiful, and that is one thing that I took for granted. Just living on such a big body of water growing up, like we're always at the river, and that's not something you have everywhere. It's especially here. You're not risking your life going boating on the weekends. Yep. It's just like floating the river all summer. A lot of good memories there. And I thought that there were large rivers like that everywhere. Yep. Turns out there's not.
I feel like we do the same thing in Utah though, right? It's like every time people come into town, it's like, where do you go skiing? Where do you go snowboarding? And we just look at them and say, yeah, we don't go. Yeah. And then they're blown away by it. But then when we go to like California or Hawaii, it's like, where can we surf?
Yeah. I mean, no one's going to the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. True. I think wherever you live, you've done it a couple times and then it's just taken for granted. But yes. No, that's fun. So what's it like having 2 older brothers? I mean, the whole family into sports, was it like a competitive atmosphere growing up, or what do you guys like?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think we are all competitive. I definitely was the sibling. So growing up, 2 older brothers, it was definitely like, oh, well, my sister's going to do this, so will you do this? My brothers would use that line a lot with their friends. So I was always like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. Like whether it was cliff jumping or just something reckless, and like, or like an arm wrestling match, whatever it was, they definitely put me against the like neighbor kids or their friends or whatever, because they just knew I was up for the challenge. And I think I liked challenges. Yeah. And so I was a pretty fearless kid. I think I just I've always liked to see what I'm capable of and push myself. Yep. And so having older brothers to like egg me on or to impress and like want to make them proud was definitely awesome. A part of that. Like,
isn't that funny though? Because like Keely and I chat about this a lot, me and my wife, because like our second one always wants to keep up with the first one, and the third one is totally trying to keep up now. But I always feel like I'm a good athlete because of my older brother, and I always just wanted to run around with his crew play
Yeah.
basketball, football, whatever they were doing. And I had to like learn how to keep up really quick,
Yeah.
you know? So probably for you, it's just one of those things where it's like, I want to impress them. I want to be around them.
Yeah, I think that was definitely an influence for sure. And then they played sports and were really into sports. And I think,
Yeah.
so I think I just wanted to do the same. And then I think as I got into sports and like started doing athletic things, I realized I really enjoyed them too.
Yeah.
They gave me a lot of fulfillment just right away.
Yeah.
So
So growing up for you, like what sports were you in?
let's see, my first, so I did the little like pre-dance
Yep.
stuff when I was little, and I did gymnastics. And I remember actually we were watching the Summer Olympics, and my mom had told me she wanted me to choose between dance and gymnastics. Like it was starting to be a lot to do all of it.
Yeah.
And I loved gymnastics. That was actually probably my preference. But we were watching the Summer Olympics, and I was watching a girl on like the vault or doing something. Actually, it was the balance beam. She was doing some just amazing, crazy tricks on the balance beam. It's probably not the right word, tricks, but
We get it. I wouldn't know what to say either, so I think you nailed it.
And my brother was like, "Oh my gosh, Michaela, you could do that someday if you stick with gymnastics." And I was terrified. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go and do that. That looks so scary and hard. And so that was like my decision maker. Like, yeah, mom, we can drop gymnastics,
Yeah.
which is funny because it's kind of out of character for me. But I ended up regretting that because I did really like gymnastics. And so I think I started to realize that I don't need to, do that. Like it's one step at a time.
Yeah.
Obviously I wasn't going to go from like climbing the rope and doing a cartwheel to be at
Yeah.
the Olympics, but it scared me to think that I would have to do that if I stayed in gymnastics. And so regretting quitting, because I eventually didn't stick with dance, I switched to soccer and basketball kind of from there, and just realizing that, yeah, it's just one practice at a time and
Yeah.
like improving your skills.
Yeah.
One movement at a time, one practice at a time. And then whatever the end goal is doesn't feel so scary.
Yeah.
So
Which
I
is
definitely
awesome.
applied that
Yeah.
through the rest of my life. But it is funny to think back on one of my first like moments, deciding factors in sports that I quit because it looked scary to be at the top of the game for that reason.
That's hilarious. It's very true though.
And I think, I think it's easy to psych yourself out in sports or in
Yep.
business or whatever it is. But
Correct.
I remember that lesson pretty early.
How did you get out to Utah?
My brothers, again,
Okay.
they were at school in Salt Lake, and
They just come down for school or they play sports down in Salt Lake?
nope, they just came down for school, and I think they had friends that were in Utah, and so they ended
Cool.
up just coming down. And so it felt kind of safe. Like, oh, my brothers are
Yep.
there. That feels safe. And then my parents actually were driving down to visit them, and they saw Weber State University, and they were like, oh, Michaela's running track. We should go just check out their college track team.
Yeah.
I don't know what made them think of that. And this was my junior year. And so the coaches happened to be out on the field, and they told them like, oh, our daughter is running track. And
That's
they're
hilarious.
amazing coaches and so kind. And so they asked about me, and like my parents remembered. I mean, they were
Yeah.
always supportive, but not like way into sports. So
Yeah.
they somehow told them how I was doing, like what my times were. I ran the 100-meter hurdles and I long jumped and did the relays in high school. And so they told them just, I guess, some of my numbers and stats, and they were really excited. And they're like, we would love to have her out for a recruiting trip. And so
your parents were just driving, stopping
Yeah,
at every college,
super
trying
random.
to get you out of the house.
yes.
That's funny. Like, what age did you decide? Like, if we back up into high school, right? Like, at what age were you like, "Hey, I'm really good at running. This is what I want to do"? Or was it like junior high, just got into high school and thought, my friends are doing this. Like, I think it'd be fun. Or how did you even get into running?
I remember, so this was early, but it like sparked I think I'm kind of fast. In elementary school, we did like a 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
Or 50-yard dash, somewhere
Yep.
in there. And it was all of us lined up, like boys, girls, multiple classes. And I don't think I'd ever raced anyone before.
Yeah.
And they said go or
Yep.
whatever it was, blew the whistle, and we ran. And I remember like halfway through being like, oh my gosh, no one's with me, and finishing and beating a couple of the boys, some of like the fast boys that were running.
Yeah.
And it hit me I think I'm fast. So that was like a
Hilarious.
fun feeling.
Yeah.
And I feel like my whole track career could boil down to that. I liked it because it was fun to win.
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved running track.
Yeah.
But I also really loved there's so much about it that I did love, but track is not an easy sport.
Yeah.
And to compete just on your own individually is a lot of pressure. So I learned a lot. It taught me a lot, but there were definitely a lot of hard moments. High school was more fun.
Yeah.
Because practices were pretty easy. So the meets were really scary because I think it was like showing up and I hadn't really had to do that and be under that kind of pressure at practice.
Yeah.
So I remember getting really nervous for big track meets, state track, different meets that we would go to. And then in college, it was almost the opposite. Like every day at practice, our coaches were pretty old school. So they trained the whole team, whether you were a 100-meter sprinter, long jumper, or an 800-meter runner. They trained us all as like middle distance runners.
Okay.
Which I thought was normal. Turns out that's not normal. I have friends that have gone to other universities. The sprinters were just sprinting.
Yeah.
We were running repeat 400s. So it was like, definitely college was so challenging. Every day I would get really nervous for practice. But I would go to practice thinking there's no way I'm going to complete this workout. We have 12 200s to repeat, 30 seconds rest. I've got to hit these times.
Yeah.
And then I would finish the workout and be so surprised. Like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I didn't think there was any possible way I could do that. And so I think that's probably those were my biggest teaching moments in college, was showing up, not being sure, but like being willing to try and surprising myself and just seeing that I could do way more than I
which is awesome.
realized, and having a coach that knew what I was capable of to like set it up that way.
Yep. Kind of push you.
So important. Yeah. And so that taught me a lot going into CrossFit, because CrossFit's just like track. It's painful, but it's way more variety.
Yeah.
So it was really fun.
Before we get into that, like the thought just came to my head of me looking at 200 meters on a treadmill and running that 12 times. It sounds terrible,
Oh my gosh.
So the fact that you guys were doing that quite a bit,
better
it's
than
just
400
crazy.
meter repeats.
So back up, like on the recruiting story, right? Because like obviously your parents like went in there, kind of told them what they are.
Yeah.
Like at what point did you start talking to the coaches at Weber State? When did they start paying attention to you? Like right after that, or?
Yeah, I think that was probably the summer before my junior year. So they kind of kept in touch, and then spring was track. So they wanted to see how I did in my races and stuff. And I had a great season, and so that we talked about coming like there for school and. And I don't remember ever thinking about doing college athletics before that. Like, I think it was probably that spurred it for me. And I realized, I could get my school paid for. Like, it would be fun to run on a team. And they had a really great program at Weber State at the time, like just lots of championships that they'd won. I really liked the coaches. Yeah. And so I went on my recruiting trip there the following fall. And I want to say that's when I signed. I can't remember. I think it's in the fall. Place. In the fall that you sign. Yeah. And so then, I came to school. So I came for my recruiting trip, and my now sister-in-law was my host.
Really?
So she was on the track team, and I just loved her. We became good friends, and she's just an amazing woman. But she hosted me. Actually, and her roommate at the time also became my sister-in-law. It's kind of so I married into a family with a lot of athletes.
I was going to say. There's a lot of boys hitting up the track girls.
Yeah. So when I actually went on my recruiting trip and stayed with her, my husband, Craig, him and his brother were just there. They like happened to be there at her apartment for a little bit that night. And I was like, we got some cute football players at Weber State. And I had a really great weekend. And then, fast forward a year later, I was there for school.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
What's I guess for like, anybody that's younger that's like going through high school right now looking into getting recruiting, like what's something you wish you maybe would have done differently in the recruiting process? And give me kind of a positive and negative of like collegiate sports, like your experience. Not that it was bad at Weber State, but what was something you loved about that atmosphere, and what's something you wish I wish that was a little bit different? Yeah,
I think if you do want to do college sports, like putting in the work and being willing to do that is everything. But I wish I would have, and I'm not like, no regrets. I'm so grateful for my experience, but I kind of went into it thinking every university was the same.
Yeah.
And every college experience was the same.
Yeah.
So I went on the one recruiting trip. I really wish I would have. And some of that was comfort. Like I wanted to be in Utah because my brothers were in Utah. That felt a little bit safe going out onto the world on my own. University of Utah didn't have a coach at the time. BYU was not recruiting very many people, especially in the U.S. on the track team at the time. And so, I kind of just settled on Weber State. It felt right. But I wish I would have thought about, what about other states? Like, let's explore maybe some California options, or just like known how to do that. And some of that, I didn't know anyone that was a college athlete. I didn't have any experience with that. And so knowing where to look and like how to go about that process, I knew nothing. So it was kind of serendipitous that I ended up, my parents met the coaches and I loved them and it worked out. But for my kids, like if that's something that they want to pursue, I think I'll push them a little bit more outside of their comfort zone. Like, okay, what are some other areas? Maybe we go visit, or maybe we could look on the map, or where, what do you like? What temperatures do you like? What atmosphere do you like? Like what's important to you? And then kind of help them figure it out in that way too. And I just know more, having done it myself.
Correct.
Like my parents did the best that they could. And
Correct.
I'm like amazed actually that they coordinated that. But I think those are some things that I'll just want them to be aware of too, because that environment really kind of sets your course for adulthood too in a lot of ways.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So give me kind of the good and bad of collegiate sports.
Oh gosh.
And I guess with your husband playing football up there too, I'm sure you guys have chatted about this quite a bit.
Yeah, we probably have different perspectives. Good and bad. I would say the good. Well, I'm trying to think if there's the bad first, because I probably have a lot more good things to say. The bad would be, well, less for me. I was grateful that I did track, because if you're good and you put in the work and you're fast, then you are in the race. Like no one's keeping you out of the race, right?
Correct.
You're running. If you do your best, like you're gonna get your performance will matter basically. So where like with team sports, I think that's a totally different dynamic where you might not get playing time. You have to deal with that. So I loved doing track that I didn't have to deal with that. If you qualified, you made it. Yeah, and there was no like politics there for the most part. And so I really liked that aspect of the sport of track and field. Some of the downsides were maybe just kind of feeling lonely sometimes, and it's a lot of pressure. To do an individual sport, it's all on you.
Correct.
And then you are on a team, but you're also competing against your teammates. So that could be hard at times. There was like sometimes tension there with teammates that were doing the same events as me. And so that was challenging, like learning how to manage those relationships and figure that out. And also coming into my own confidence that, how someone else doesn't mean I can't do well, or vice versa.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Like, how do you stay like excited about it, positive mindset that like, hey, I can go compete and I can do really good?
Yeah, I had some teammates that would get really upset if I would do well. Like we're talking, this is, let's say long jump. If I had a really like a personal best on my long jump, and I watched the kind of inner like frustration that would give them. And I realized it allowed me to realize that how someone else is performing has nothing to do with me. And I can show up and do my best. Like if I jump, 19 feet, they can still jump 19 feet. Like we're all, it's equal for everyone. And so I realized watching that I didn't want to spend my energy thinking about how other people were doing. And then on the same side of that, some of my biggest upsets in college track were the ones where I was paying attention to my competition and worrying about what they were doing. Yeah. And so that taught me a lot. I had a conference championship that I was, ranked first in. I felt really confident going into it. It was in the 60-meter hurdles, 60 or 55. They changed it depending on the meet and like how much room they had. Yeah. This was indoor track, and I just for a minute lost focus of my lane and hit a hurdle, which for women, that's your race is done when you hit a hurdle. Whether or not you can push through or not, like your time isn't going to be what you wanted it to be. And I lost the race and I was so devastated. And that wasn't the only time that happened either. Like I had multiple times where that happened and I realized I have no control over what anyone else is doing. All I can control is my lane. And, it's something I still have to remind myself.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, this is life.
Yeah.
Like that's the life principle right there, right? It's like almost like just stay in your lane and focus on what you're doing. It's hard sometimes because you want to know, kind of have an idea of what the competition is doing because you don't know how to like gauge yourself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you hit it on the head. It's like if you don't stay positive and focus on yourself and you're worried about what's going on, more than likely, like you're not going to have the outcome that you want, you know?
Yeah. I've never had the outcome that I want when I'm worried about what everyone else is doing.
Correct.
In life or literally in a race. And so I think
and I think it's a true testament though, that like we all do stuff our own way.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times, especially nowadays with like Instagram, social media, everything that's going on, like we're all comparing ourselves to each other. You know, like how are we doing it or how are they doing it faster than I am or how are they richer than we are? You know, whatever that might look like. How are they prettier than us? Whatever that might look like. You know, we all have our kind of our own insecurities. But at the end of the day, what I do for work is completely different than your husband. So if I focus on what, you know, Craig's doing, like it doesn't no good for me. You know what I'm saying?
Or even other people in your field too, right? Like you have your own unique way of doing things and so that's how you.
Well, and the other thing too is like we have different wants and out of life. That's probably the bigger thing to like focus on here is like what I want for my wife and my kids is completely different than probably what you guys want, you know, kind of a general form. But at the end of the day, like you guys enjoy doing stuff that we may not.
Right.
And sometimes like it's hard to like sit back and think, you know, Craig and Michaela are doing awesome things, but
that's not what I want.
It's not what I want. Right. We're headed in this direction. So yeah, let's kind of dive into, I'm very, very, very interested in the CrossFit thing.
Okay. Let's talk about CrossFit.
So how did you even like coming out of college? Like it was just like, hey, I'm competitive in college. I still have that spirit. I want to be competitive still. Or how did you get into CrossFit? Like how did it even go there?
I had actually at my senior year I don't know if it was the college championships because we hosted them at Weber State or if it was another meet. But I remember being approached by one of the coaches of the, and I don't know, it was to do with the U.S. bobsled team. So I don't know like how they were affiliated, but they were wanting to recruit me. I did the heptathlon too. So multi-sports, multi-event athlete. So that's.
Explain what that is really quick.
The heptathlon is 7 events. It's over 2 days. So it's kind of similar to CrossFit. You have a cumulative score and I loved it except for the very last event is the 800.
Okay.
And that's
what are the 7 events?
So
what are
it's
they?
the 100-meter hurdles, which is what my main event.
Yep.
And the 200-meter dash, which I also ran in college and loved. And the 800, do not love that event. But those are the 3 running events. Yeah. And then it's long jump and high jump. I was a long jumper in college, so that was in my wheelhouse. High jump, not as much, but it was fun, a fun challenge. And then the javelin and the shot put.
Okay.
And I liked both of those events. I was not as technical, definitely, at them, but I had power, so that helped a little bit. I did okay at those. So I did the heptathlon my junior and senior year. And I'm just a power athlete, like anything that's powerful. And I excelled at where we're getting in longer distances, more speed, like the 400, not as much. And then endurance. I've got grit, but I do not have, my legs are big. They do not move long distances very well. Yeah. So I did the heptathlon and so I think that's probably part of why they approached me, but they approached me to come and train in Park City. Cool. And I was a hard no on that. Like I was just finishing up my senior year. We were married. We got married right before my junior year. So I just wanted nothing to do with competing at that point. Yeah. And I had a job lined up. I was working at an advertising agency and I was super excited about that. I majored in business marketing, minored in psychology. And so I was interested in psychology, but I knew I got to get a master's degree to really pursue that work-wise. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that. And so I loved that advertising is kind of a mix of the two, business and psychology. And so I was really excited about that and just change, like not worrying about showing up and doing something hard every day physically. And logistically, I was like, there's no way I could go to Park City and do that. And so fast forward probably only 9 months after that.
Okay.
Because it would have been the next spring, I got invited. A friend I knew from college, her husband, he played football at Weber State. He was like interning for CrossFit, and they were trying to start up a little Weber State CrossFit. So she invited me to do a free workout. And at that point, I had been working. Craig was a personal trainer and doing personal training sales at the time. And
life is great.
I had no interest in doing that. Yeah. He was working long hours and making no money, and just he was passionate about exercise, but like that wasn't really the way to do it. And so, but I was going to the gym and kind of trying to figure out like what does fitness mean to me now that I'm not competing. And so I had done like a few half marathons and a marathon. I was trying to like do some physical things, and that's what everyone does after college is running. Correct. And so I did that.
Just not get fat, Michaela. That's what it's called. Just not sit around anymore,
Yeah, so I did some of that, but distance running doesn't light me up really. It was okay. And so I went and did this workout, and it was like a mixture of, I don't even remember, kettlebell swings and lunges and box jumps and just like tons of variety. And I thought it was so fun. And, but we're still like poor, just out of college. Married. And he told me that they had a team, and if I made the team that I could come for free. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to come and do the team thing. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to come do it. So day one, I was like going to compete. Correct. Basically. Yep. And it just sounded fun. And so I showed up for my first workout, and being a sprinter, hurdler, right? I got really lucky. The workout was like box jumps, 200-meter run, and wall balls where you are squatting a bunch and using your hips, throwing the ball, and maybe something else, but it was like all lower body. Yeah. And so I just
destroyed it.
Destroyed it. Had it been anything else, I wouldn't have. But I just, did amazing. And I remember like going in the bathroom after and calling Craig and be like, I think I made the team. Which is so funny because it's really not as serious as I thought it was. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you compete, come back. And I just like looked around and was like, this is such a cool environment. There's all these people here. It felt so different than Gold's Gym or anywhere else. Like it was just like a family, a team kind of feeling. And then I kind of seeing the CrossFit environment showed me like, oh, you could make a career out of something you're passionate about, and it can actually, it doesn't have to look like how I thought it would look. Where correct, I always have been passionate about fitness and like moving my body and the challenge of doing physical things, but when we talk about comparison, I think sometimes comparison can be good if you're looking at it for examples. Like I think we're always looking for examples of, can I do this? Is this possible?
Yeah, and I think it's always gauging, right? Yeah. But it's not judging. It's not like, oh, I'm not as good as them, or, oh, I can't do that. Like, or,
oh, someone's doing something different.
There we go.
I could do something different. Or I could do that too, maybe. And so the fitness like career path never appealed to me. It was always fitness could maybe pay for my college or teach me things in life, but it wasn't something I could actually make a living at. Yeah. And so when I saw CrossFit, it was the first time I saw that I could maybe help people like learn those things and also provide for myself and my family and do it in a way that's different. Because I saw at that time the advertising agency track. I mean, like, yeah, I could stick with this. It's fun. I like it. And I'll be working 80-hour work weeks very soon. Like that's the trajectory here. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to have kids. And so I just knew I could, maybe do this for a couple more years. But once I start having children, like this isn't what I want.
Correct. Forever.
And so within like 6 months of that, I got certified in CrossFit, quit my job, and started coaching.
Really?
Like right away. And then competing. Yeah. At the same time.
So let's walk through I feel like obviously everybody knows what CrossFit is, but talk about like when you first got started. Because isn't there like regional stuff? Like how did you guys qualify?
Yes.
Did you do it? Did you ever do it by yourself? Was it always a team event for you? Like what was it?
So the decade of me in CrossFit was lots of having babies and competing.
Which is amazing.
So it was, and I knew even going in, like, yeah, I want to compete, but also if I get pregnant, like, that's what I'm doing. Like that was my main priority at the time, was I really wanted to have a baby. And so this was 2000, I don't know, 11 or 12. It's all blurs together for me now. But it would have been, let me think, 2012, I think. I started let's see, summer, you qualify the next. So I started in the summertime, 2011, and then 2012 came, and then it was the CrossFit Open.
Okay.
So that was my first CrossFit Open. And I can't remember what my placement was like in the world or regionals, but I qualified to compete individually.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing at the time about like the competitive scene and what it was to compete as an individual. And our team really wanted to go, and they needed me. It was 3 girls and 3 boys, 3 men, 3 women on a team at the time. So I was, and Craig would have been on the team too. I talked him into coming by then. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do team this year. That sounds fun. So we went to regionals. It was in Denver, and the top 5 go to the games. I think we placed, or the top 3 go to the games at the time. I think we placed 5th. We were 2 outside of going.
Okay.
And I got, a front row seat of what it was to compete at CrossFit, and I loved it. And I there were some frustrations that weekend too. And so I knew, I want to do this as an individual too. I think that would be really fun. And
is it harder as an individual or a team event?
Oh my gosh, it's so much harder as an individual.
Is it?
But it's just a different type of gratification. And I think having competed my whole life in track as an individual, like
you want to kind of control your own outcome.
There's pros and cons, but I like the idea of controlling my own outcome.
Correct.
It's way more pressure, which is not always fun. But when it goes well, like, it's so gratifying to know all the hard work you put in is just, you own, that's yours. Like, you put in the work and you competed and you showed up, and that's really gratifying. Long term, I think team is more fun because I think the success of it lives forever. Like with a team, it's so fun. And then the hard moments are easier too, because you have someone to joke around with, and like you're not so in your head. And so I'm glad I got to experience both. But right after regionals, within a few months, we found out we were pregnant with twins. So that quickly shifted gears, and I found out, in the summer. Ended up watching Craig went team that next year, which was super fun. I watched them. I was like 2 weeks before my due date with twins, and went full to, I got induced at 38 weeks with twins, had them in July, and knew, okay, come next February, like, I want to qualify as an individual, and I want to also compete at nationals for Olympic weightlifting. How
did Craig do? How did they do for the second time? So the second time going back, didn't go great for them the second time around.
No, but he ended up injuring his shoulder, which he had an injury from high school football, and he fell on it, and so he that was fun for him, but kind of him realizing this isn't what I really want to do. Like, I'm so limited with my shoulder. It's causing me a lot of pain that I'm just going to lift from now on. So he kind of stopped. And that's when I was that whole pregnancy, okay, when I have these babies, I'm going to hit the ground running and train. And I want to qualify within 9 months or whatever for CrossFit. But then I also really liked Olympic weightlifting. So I wanted to compete at that too. Because you do Olympic weightlifting in CrossFit, but it's a separate sport also. So that was my goal.
I'm weak, Michaela. This is embarrassing. What do you do?
Maybe a little bit golf, crazy.
And so talk to us, having the twins, your goal is to obviously go compete again. Mm-hmm. What is the workout balance life with the kids, especially having 2 of them?
Yes.
How did you manage that?
Looking back, I have no idea how I managed it, but at the time, I think having the training gave me something to. Having twins is a lot. It's
correct.
Full-time assembly line, one diaper change, the next diaper change, feed the babies, clean up, feed them again, just nonstop. And so I think having that goal and having the daily work that I put in towards that goal gave me so much fulfillment when I was just constantly giving.
Do you
to
feel like
others.
it was like almost escapism for you?
Oh,
like
for
get away from life, go do your own thing, focus on something different, and then come back to life? Or what was it for you?
I think it just made me, just was a way to give back to myself, honestly. Cool. And yeah, I mean, having an hour by myself was great. And we had such an amazing gym community. And really that was like the only place I could go safely, right? So in order to get myself and the babies into somewhere, it took multiple trips. And
Correct.
so to be able to pull right up to the door and bring one car seat in, then the other car seat in, then the diaper bag in. And it was a 20-minute drive. So I would hook up my pump on the way there, give them their bottles. And then they would sit with someone I knew and trusted, and there's a window there and I could get my workout done. Yeah. And like, I feel so grateful that I had that, where I wouldn't have been able to go to Gold's Gym and do that. And I didn't have a home gym. And so that was awesome. Usually what I would do is I would go really early in the morning and do like running or cardio, and then I would take them at like 9 a.m. or at 4 p.m. or whenever there was childcare and go back. Yeah. And that was just our day. It was go to the gym, have lunch, everyone goes down for a nap, myself included. And it was just like a easy.
How long, like after the birth, right? Like at what point did you feel like, hey, my body's back? I got,
never.
Never. Well, I mean by that, like from physical shape, right? Because you know where you had to be in order to compete. Yeah. So like, how long did it take you to recover to feel like, hey, I'm back? Like I feel physically great.
Well, that's a complex answer because I had the twins and I had them at full term. So 2 6-pound babies, they caused a hernia. So I had a pretty big umbilical hernia that my doctor said I needed to get repaired right away. Yeah. So I went in for surgery. I think it was like 3 weeks postpartum maybe. And so I had to wait another 6 weeks to start working out. So I think I was a couple months, 2.5 months maybe after I had the babies before I was really starting to work out. And then I had really severe abdominal separation, which at the time I didn't know what that was, diastasis recti. And I just kind of was like, well, this is just how things are going to be. And every resource I looked into for diastasis recti said, don't do anything, just like walk. And I knew, okay, I'm trying to go to CrossFit regionals or the games, or I like, that doesn't, I'm just going to ignore that. Yeah. So I just went about training as regular. And so we're talking 2.5 months postpartum, I start training. Fully in at 8 months postpartum, I was pregnant with Jack and I didn't know. So I was still training really hard. And at, let's see,
Craig's got
10 months postpartum, I was competing. Oh no, hold on. At like 11 months postpartum, I was competing at regionals. So I qualified for nationals for Olympic weightlifting, qualified for regionals, which is top 20 in the region, which is a few states, like the southern states. So I was super excited. I didn't know I was pregnant. We did fertility to get pregnant, and I had my abs
like with the twins, right?
And my abs were separated, and
so that's why Craig didn't have a goalie, because you guys just kind of figured like it's not going to happen anyways.
And so I was kind of thinking, oh, I know you can get pregnant before your period comes, but that's so unlikely. So when it does come, I'll go to the doctor. Yeah. So so I fast forward, I went to compete at nationals. No, I competed at regionals. So I was probably about 13 weeks along at that time.
And you still didn't know? And
I didn't know. No, I was really, had a lot of I was very self-conscious about my belly because it was postpartum and separated abs into pregnancy. And so at the time too, everything I read said to wear an abdominal binder and it would help your abs close up. Yeah. And so I just did that. I just put it on and kind of like out of sight, out of mind. And any pregnancy symptom, well, I was exhausted. Really my only symptoms I get luckily when I'm pregnant are just fatigue. Yeah. But I had newborn twins and I was training twice a day. So you just felt like that was my new normal.
Makes sense.
And I also thought TMI, so like but you're a dad. It's
you're
fine.
Good. All I got is girls in my house, Michaela.
I thought my period started, but I was having just spotting because I was training really hard. Yeah. And so I went to my doctor. So I competed at regionals. It went as good as I would have hoped being newly kind of postpartum. I was super excited just to go and compete and I had so much fun. And then fast forward a little bit later, I'd qualified for nationals. So I went and competed at nationals for Olympic weightlifting, and I was about 20 weeks pregnant at that time and didn't know. And I had an incident where I was like, oh, something's off here. And so I scheduled with my OB-GYN because I knew I needed to go in and like get on birth control and have the postpartum appointment. And so I went in and he felt my abs. They had me do the P test and everything and gave me my birth control and sent me on my way.
No way.
And and so about another month goes by and I'm like, something. My mom, actually, we were going on a family trip and she saw my belly and was like, honey, I think your ab separation's getting worse. I'm kind of worried about you.
No way.
She's like, maybe I'd just been to the doctor and I wasn't pregnant and I'm on birth control. And so she's like, maybe just take a test to just see, nobody thought I was pregnant. We all just thought, oh, she's got this abdominal separation. She's got to figure out what to do there. And I took a test and it was like immediately pregnant. And then I took the abdominal binder off. I'm like, okay, I don't need to wear this thing anymore.
Yeah.
And then that night when I was laying in bed, I felt kicking and was like, oh, I am not just barely pregnant. I am like actually pregnant. And so I called the doctor and was like, you guys did that test? And they're like, oh, we must have didn't actually check to see if you were pregnant. I'm like, why did we do the urine test? So anyways, went in the following week. I was 24 weeks along. So it was end of August and I was due 1st of December.
No way.
So it was crazy. It's kind of awesome to only be like mentally pregnant for 3 months.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm like, that's like 5 months.
Especially since we had twins that were just barely a year old. I think it was almost like,
did Craig want to murder you? Like you've got twins and then it's hey, we're going to have another one?
Just like, what are we going to do
That's what I feel like. That'd be so hard.
2 1-year-old twins was crazy.
Yeah.
Adding another baby in the mix was insane. But if you know Jack, he's like the most just amazing child in the world. I'm like, you would be like, hey mom, I'm going to just let you not know I'm here for 6 months so that you can not go crazy.
That is wild.
So then I had him in December. He was, mid-December. And then the open was like 2 months later. So I just did it kind of for fun and was planning on training again. And so that next year, we're 2016, I set out to compete as an individual and I made it to regionals and had the most incredible, I didn't really know what I was capable of because it had been so much as far as pregnancy went. And I was coming this time where the last time at regionals, I was coming just to be there. And this time I felt like, I think I can actually do well, but I didn't know how well. And I felt that pressure for sure of showing up, but I didn't have a coach. I had just followed a training program online and I felt really alone at regionals. It was in Dallas.
Okay.
And I had friends that were competing that I looked up to a lot that were way more just veterans in the sport of CrossFit. And the event started going and I think I won a couple of them and just really surprised myself. Like after it's a 3-day competition, after the end of day 1, I was sitting top 5 and top 5 go to the games.
Okay.
And same thing, day 2 came around just as well. At the end of day 2, I was tied for 2nd or 3rd. And so going into day 3, which now it's been so long, I'm like, was it 3 days or 2?
Yeah.
This might've been 2. I could be, don't quote me here. But going into the last day, we had a couple events left and I was so nervous. Like, okay, here I am competing against women I've watched compete and do well at the games. And I'm just here with them and just trying to stay calm and not overthink it, but not really having a coach to talk me through it. I just felt so overwhelmed. And we were going into the last event. I was tied for 2nd in a really good place. And all I had to do was finish and I would have been top 5 going to the games.
Okay, yeah.
Adrenaline. Love Craig. He's the best husband ever, but he's not a great coach for me specifically.
He's just like, Michaela, just finish already.
So right before I'm like, I'm so nervous. And he's like, just go in and win the thing. Like he was just like hyped and excited. So I took that and just went out the gate as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And I probably needed a more like calm,
Yeah.
like just chill, go slow,
Yep.
and I would have been fine. And instead, I was going out to win the event, which I didn't need to do. And it was thrusters and legless rope climbs, and it was like 21, 15, 9 on the thrusters. The legless rope climbs, I want to say, were like 5, 3, 1. So you would just go back and forth.
Okay.
So I did my thrusters, got a couple no reps. I was really nervous and going way too fast, and then ran over. I think the rope climbs were actually 3, 2, 1. So I did my 3 rope climbs really fast, up, down, and it's a high rope, and it's legless. So you're climbing up, and you have to hit the top, and then your legs can clamp the rope.
Okay.
You can't clamp and then hit.
Yep.
Or at the same time. And so I did all 3, came down, did my next set, 15 thrusters, and did 2, and then came back, did my 9 thrusters, and I'm, top, like I'm doing really well here. And I run to do my last rope climb and just jump up, climb to the top. I hit and clamp my legs at the same time and didn't realize you're just in a whole like out of body experience. I come down and she says no rep. And so instead of just pausing, looking around, seeing I was good, I panicked and I jumped back up on the rope and climbed, and my arms just were done. And so I made it like almost to the top, just slide down the rope, and then pretty much continued that until the time was up and didn't finish. And so it took me out of going to the games.
No way.
They reviewed the footage and decided to give me the rep, and it put me, now I don't even remember, because at the time it was just such a blur. I'm like, what happened? I got a no rep. I didn't really know why. And so they reviewed it and they called it good. And so that was a huge surprise too.
So you went from like, thought, no way, I'm done.
Going to, now I'm going.
Yeah.
And they put me on the podium, 3rd place. And then after that, I get a phone call, and the girl that got knocked out of 5th,
there you go.
She called and was really upset.
Yep.
So then they decided, we can't actually give you that rep. And so they had me. So I'm like, I have to catch my plane. At this point, I just told them, I don't care. Like, whatever you guys need to do. I don't want to go if I don't deserve to go.
Yep.
But also, this is really emotional. So like, just tell me what you guys want. Like, I same thing. I wouldn't have felt good going if I didn't deserve to go. So I was
Correct.
like, I'll take 6th place if that's what that means. And so it ended up meaning that, and almost missed my plane, came home, just so devastated. On the one hand, I was really devastated that happened at the end, and because I could have easily had it not happen if I just went into that last event smart and like really calm and thought it through. But the coolest takeaway for me was I went to regionals with just no idea of what I could do. And I left regionals knowing I can be at the games, and I'm just as good as all these other women. And I had the confidence that even though I wasn't going to compete at the games, like I felt like I deserved to be there. And so I was okay. I was okay with that.
Yep.
And some of my good friends also had a kind of a rough weekend at regionals competing as individuals. And so that's when we decided, well, let's go team next year and see what we can do. And so we pretty much started training right away. We were all really motivated. Yeah. And so that was what led me into going on team for 2017.
Okay.
And that was the best experience ever. It was just such a fun experience.
And this is a completely different team, obviously, from like 6 years ago.
Yes.
5 or 6 years prior.
This was one of my good friends. So 2 of my good friends competed as individuals the same weekend. Mm-hmm. And they had a rough weekend. One of them, Mandy Janowitz, I ran against her in college. She ran for University of Idaho. She was also a heptathlete. And then the other girl I trained with throughout my whole time at CrossFit, Tiffany Hendrickson. She was a gymnast for Boise State. So she's an amazing athlete also. And then Adrian Conway, who played football with Craig. Yep. And I coached with him throughout the years and trained with him. So he's a good friend. And then it was Brennan Fjord, just a friend, like kind of a mutual friend through CrossFit. He was in Salt Lake at the time. And then we weren't sure on our last guy, and we ended up having someone, Mitch Spute. He was new to CrossFit, but like the hardest working kid ever. And so we ended up having him be on the team kind of towards the end, like just the beginning of the season, end of the training season. And so it was the 6 of us, and it was really fun because there was one team that had won, for like the last 5 years or 3 years or whatever it was. And they had, Rich Froning was like the team captain or leader or whatever on that team. And he had won more than anyone as an individual.
Okay.
In CrossFit. And so he's just this legend.
Yep.
And now he's on a team. And so they're unbeatable, right?
Yep.
As a team. And so we started trash talking early in the season. Not really. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not a trash talker. But actually, I don't even know who it was. The company that sponsored us really was saying things more as a joke, like we're going to beat Froning.
So back up really quick here.
Yeah.
So you guys kind of put your team together,
Yes.
right? How do you even get noticed to get a sponsorship? And my next question is, for those people that don't know, like CrossFit in general, like, do you represent the state of Utah? Do you guys just go in as your own and there's multiple teams from Utah going to regionals?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like how do you even get there and how do you get sponsored?
So it's changed throughout the years, but it was the top, I think it was top 20 teams go to regionals.
Okay.
And that is the whole south of the United States, basically. So it was like Texas, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, just kind of all those states from like Texas over.
Okay.
California being with the West. Yeah, the West.
Okay. You're good.
We're
You're
all
good.
the South.
I get what you're saying.
So it was the top 20 teams, and every gym could have a team.
Okay.
So
you guys worked at your okay. So it wasn't like somebody was in St. George, somebody was up here. You guys were on a team.
No,
It
you
was
had to
like
be local.
So you had to represent Wasatch.
Yes, you had to have like, if there's 5 training sessions in a week, 3 of them had to be at your gym.
Okay, cool.
So you had to spend most of your time together. So we always trained together. So you couldn't have like a super team of people from different states.
That
It
makes
was just
sense.
local. So no one really knew about us. And we came out, the one of the companies that was our sponsor came out saying we were going to beat Rich Froning's team.
Makes sense.
Mayhem. And so people got really upset about that. And it just became like a funny joke as we were training. We really, all of us being competitive athletes, like we were going to win. Like that was our goal, was we're going to go to the CrossFit Games and we want to win.
Yeah.
And we're not going to say that we're hoping for 3rd place. Like we want to win. And it's different to say, I'm going to go and win as an individual. Like that's a lot to just put that out there. But as a team, it felt like, oh yeah, no, we've got it. We've got each other, and we can, we're going to put in the work, and we're going to support one another, and we're going to go win. And did we know if we were capable? Not really.
Yeah.
But we just decided that we were going to set out, and that was our goal. And if anyone else was going, like that should be their goal too.
Love it.
And so, we didn't really know what we were capable of. We qualified through the Open. We all have to individually have good enough scores to qualify our team. So we qualified for regionals. We went to regionals, and it was the first region. So there's all these regions that go throughout the world. I think there's 6 in the world. And ours was the first weekend. They're kind of all stacked. And so every region does the same workouts. And so people can want to watch to see what the workouts are and kind of strategize. How did that team do it? How did that team do it?
So with you guys going first,
we're a little bit of a disadvantage in some ways, kind of. But we ended up doing really well. Like I think our times for all the workouts, pretty much all of them weren't beat at regionals. And so that was really fun to see like, oh, okay, we actually are good as a team.
Yeah.
Like we are capable of doing this. And so, but still going to the games. So Tiffany had competed at the games as an individual. Adrian had also, and Brennan and I think Mandy had been on teams. And so I think all of them had competed at the games before. I never had. And so I didn't really know what to expect going to the games. I was definitely nervous. And then at that time, we were all way overtrained. Like I could barely pick up a barbell in training. My back was so messed up. But luckily, you can do a lot with adrenaline. Like I would be barely walking in between events. And then as soon as the event started, I felt fine.
On. Yeah.
So it was, thankfully, I was also, so at the games, People are going to think I have a poor time with family planning, but I missed my period the week before and didn't know.
Here we go again.
I just figured, we're training schedules are changing. You know, I didn't even think about it. And then the next week after the games, I found out I was pregnant with our fourth. So I was pregnant at the games, but just barely. And luckily I don't get sick. So it was fine. But that was a multiple day competition. Everything from like obstacle courses to gymnastics to running to swimming to weightlifting. It's the sport of fitness. So it's like they try to include really everything. Yeah. And we won most of the events. We ended up winning the CrossFit Games by like the most points I think ever, really? Spread wise. And so it was the coolest experience ever, and so much fun.
Did that other team you were talking about come in second then?
Yeah.
And were they just
there were some tears.
That's pretty cool though.
No, yeah. And they've never been beaten since either. So
really?
Yeah. So, part of me is like, do we need to resurrect our team? But it was definitely the coolest. And I think my favorite part, like the whole weekend of the CrossFit Games, winning events together, it was so fun. But really all of my memories that like I hold really dear from that whole experience was the year training for it.
I was going to say, spend a lot of
like
time
just
together.
The day in and day out of just pushing ourselves and having that goal.
What do you guys feel like was different with your team than the team you were talking trash on, right? That came in second place. Like, why do you feel like you guys did such a great job? Like what's funny that comes to my head, Michaela, is it the Utah elevation that helps you compete better? You know what I mean? Like when you're talking about regionals and you're like, yeah, we're killing everybody. I'm sitting here thinking like, well, yeah, if you went to sea level or something, you got a huge advantage from a cardio point of view. But not that it's
on some of the endurance things like weightlifting, obviously that's not going to help. Gymnastics, that's not going to help. But I think I would say a big part for us, just seeing a lot of the other teams, was communication. Yeah. We communicated so well and stayed so calm. Like we'd be out on the floor doing things. One of the events was a worm. So it's like a sandbag that's for many people basically. And you're squatting it, you're thrusting it, you're doing all these different things. And just having to be in sync and like feel each other and pay attention and support each other, go a little more if the person next to you is struggling. Like we'd see so many teams like fighting and arguing and getting mad in the middle of an event. Yeah. Because it was hard and they didn't know who was dropping the ball or who wasn't, giving as much. And so we never had that. And I think the thing that we probably had that it seemed like more that we excelled at as a team was communication and the just workhorse. Like all of us no one was going to outwork us on anything. So we might not have had the strongest athlete or like the most, gymnastics skilled or the best endurance, but together we had a lot of grit. Like I think that was the main thing.
It's awesome.
And so
what did that do for you guys, like life-wise?
Life-wise, I think everyone's lives changed after that. So the next week found out I was pregnant. Yep. And so I kind of shifted gears. Yep. And also around that time, so that was 2017, the sport of CrossFit kind of changed that next year. I probably would have come back after I had Scotty and gone individual, because that was something I still wanted to do. Yeah. But instead of the Worldwide Open qualifying you for regionals, then qualifying you for the games, it became a bunch of different sanctionals, and you had to qualify online, and then you go to this competition and you have to get top 3, and then you go to the games. It just became really complicated and more for me as a mom of 4 now, like qualifying through the Open, that's online, that's easy to do. And then regionals is one weekend, and then you go to the games. So just logistically, that was something that was possible for me, where now having to qualify for all these different sanctionals and go to different competitions, I just was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. So the sport kind of changed at that time, and then all of our lives were different. I think 2 people on the team, one got married, Another one moved. Another one had a baby. So just a lot of different
So it's
kind of
probably
life
a good thing you just
transitions.
retired on top then.
Yeah.
Just went
And
out
I don't
on
know,
top.
every time I think about going again, I'm like, gosh, I mean, it was just the best experience ever. I don't know if I could recreate that.
Makes sense.
And going as an individual is a full-time job now. And so knowing the work it takes to do that and ending on such a positive note, it was just a really natural transition for me to switch gears and move into just business, like focusing more on my business and my work and how I could help other people with their own goals.
And I guess let's kind of shift into that now, right? Because obviously you run a very successful business. Like, you're a boss. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about that. It's one day at a time.
You're doing extremely well. So, like, at what point from, like, you know, becoming a collegiate athlete to, like, doing the CrossFit Games, at what point did you shift into kind of the social media coaching stuff? And how did you create your brand or your awareness that, like, hey, I do macros, I do coaching.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to coach people as well. Like, did you have people, because of the notoriety and the CrossFit stuff, come to you? Or is it something that you just started to do on social and say, hey, I'm doing this if you guys are interested, type of thing?
Yeah. So when I started coaching CrossFit, I just became really interested in nutrition and just wanted to read everything I could get my hands on, because I realized, like, that is what creates the most change for people. Yeah. And so became my own passion. Yeah. Early on, and I had a lot of people coming to me for advice, and I started doing like different, groups at the gym, and that spurred into people wanting to work with me one-on-one. And so it was almost just my passion became my work. People just wanted to learn from me, and I loved helping people with the nutrition side of things. So I got certified as a nutrition coach and continued coaching CrossFit. And then when I had the twins, I realized I couldn't be in person as much as a coach. And so I switched a lot of my work to online, but competing and being a mom were my top priorities. So I never really advertised my services. I just had people coming to me. Yeah. So I was coaching people, mostly women, for quite a few years, and just taking on clients as I felt like I could with time. And it was nice. I loved that it was online, so I could do it after my kids went to bed, and I could give feedback like before they woke up, and just wherever we were, I could bring my laptop, and it worked really well for being able to do that for my work in a way that worked as a mom and while I was pursuing the sport of CrossFit. And then once I had Scotty and had decided to no longer compete in CrossFit, I felt like I had more capacity to take on more clients. And so I started to not really advertise, but just say I had openings. Yeah. And really quickly, my coaching roster filled up. And so I decided I wanted to give more attention versus just like an email check-in once a week. I felt like my clients would benefit if I was able to give them more interaction and more strategies and just more attention. And so I wanted to take on fewer clients. And so I did that, and I brought my price point up quite a bit so I could do that. And my coaching business evolved so much. Like, I could just see the people I had been working with before were now just making way bigger strides with just having more interaction. I was able to get to know my clients better and know their life demands and what was going on with them, and give them just better feedback on how they could incorporate habits and have it be sustainable. And so that was really fun for me. And then I quickly realized I can't take on any more clients. And so instead of bringing on like an assistant so I could take on more clients, that didn't feel good to me. Yep. I've seen a lot of people do that, and I didn't want someone answering like questions for me so I could take on more clients. I think that can work for some coaches, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. Instead, I wanted to bring on a team of really amazing coaches that could help people.
I really like your model because, like, to me, it's different. You know, like I was joking around with you before we even started. I'm like, there's so many people doing macros and coaching and like some people that I've talked to, it's like, oh, it's a numbers game, right? The more followers, the more people. Like, we're charging like, I don't know, $40 for the app. Like, that's where we make all of our money. We need like tons of users on the app. And I like your approach because it's more like, hey, I actually know what I'm doing. You're actually going to see results. You're going to deal with me. There's like an accountability standpoint, but that's what we all do in like the business world, right? Like I would probably never get an online coach that I just had an app to like coach me on, hiring or training or
want
like
that connection.
There's a connection, there's accountability.
And
I
trust.
probably have questions, like what's not working, why we're sitting stagnant. And so I want to be able to talk to them. So we always pay like a high dollar value to make sure we get that accountability every single week. And we get coached, we get trained, and then we can ask the questions. So I love your model because it's more one-on-one, and you hit it right on the head. Like at the end of the day, like two things come to mind for me. Number one, you put in all the time and work. So like people already know who you are, where a lot of times people just want to say they're a coach or they are a mentor, whatever. They just want to claim it, right? But it's like you've never done anything. And so you got to like a point in your career where you were at the top, which then allowed a lot of people just to come to you, which I think people don't understand that. They get really frustrated that they can't get clients, but it's like, hey, you got to put in the time, the effort, become something,
people
even though
ask
that's
me a
weird.
lot
But
how to start. And I like through that decade of competing and training
there you go.
And
Takes
all of
time.
that, I was also sharing that process on social
Correct.
media. And so I think a lot of people got to know me and knew my struggles and knew.
Which is such a cool story.
And so, and so when it came time where I was actually offering something, they were like, yes, I trust you. And I know that you're going to give me a sustainable approach.
Correct.
And now they trust who I'm putting them, like the coaches on my team are incredible and have the same values as me and same approach. And so they trust that I'm going to put them in good hands also.
Yeah.
And so it's so gratifying to now see clients with results and clients that are so excited and feel so like heard and seen by their coach. And I just get to be like front row seat to that. And so that's really cool to see my coaches now serving their clients.
This might be the most random question, and maybe you've never been asked that or this, or like, what's your retention? Do you have any idea, like people that reach out, start paying?
Yeah. So I would say on average, most of our one-on-one clients work with us about 6 to 9 months. It's a 3-month initial commitment. I'm actually considering bumping that up to 4 months just because I think that is enough time for people to really see progress towards their goals. And then it's also we know on our end that like their buy-in is there for sustainable progress, not just like a quick fix.
Makes sense.
And so, but most of them work with us for about 6 to 9 months. I have some clients that have been with me for over 2 years though.
That's awesome.
So, and it's not like they need the coaching. I mean, they are plenty educated at 2 years, but at this point, I have been with them for 2 years. I know that their struggles and they're busy. Most of the people that do one-on-one coaches, I would say the majority of our clients are really high demand careers and or they have children. So a lot of them are working moms. And so they have a lot on their plate and they want to be able to hand that off and have someone that can see things that they might not see or that can give them some strategies that they might not know how to implement themselves. And so a lot of times that's worth it for them to just.
What's funny is like, I say this, like, I feel like what you do is not necessarily in the guy's world. Like, I know one really successful real estate agent that I work with, like a guy hit him up from back east. He did his program for a really long time.
Yeah.
But like, that's my number one complaint is like, I don't know if I could commit to going to a gym even at 8 in the morning or 6 in the morning every single day for a certain period of time and make sure I'm there like life's just too crazy.
Yes.
Like I work out at so many different times during the day and I'm doing so much different stuff. So, so I feel like even in the guy section, I have the same problem. It's like, I don't, I know I can go to Google and research this stuff, but Michaela, I don't want to, and I wouldn't know where to start. Then it'd be overwhelming.
That's why you get a coach.
And then it's like, hey, I'm just going to go. Yeah, exactly. So
I
this
mean,
is why you
even
get coached.
I have been doing this for my whole life and I still hire a coach. I did a bodybuilding competition last year and I hired a coach. I just think as an individual, if there's something you're passionate about and you want to achieve, like why not have a team? I've had coaches my whole life. So I really value having someone in my corner and I've seen that like be such a difference maker for me. And so I think even if it just comes down to support, like maybe you do know everything, having someone help you implement that and having someone that is just as excited about it as you and that can support you is really valuable. Yeah.
And I think that's the big, I would say that's the credit to you because I think the reason people stay with you, of course, it's coaching, but I really think it's the friendship and being a product of their surrounding. You know what I'm saying? Because once you lose that piece in your life, like you become deflated and you're trying to find that gap. You know what I'm saying? And so like I can think of like my wife Keely, it's like I already know she's with the kids all day, you know?
Yeah.
So like if she can have that escapism, because I use that word a lot, and then you've got a coach, a friend, you're working on something that you're excited about and looking forward to.
Yeah, it gives you fulfillment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
And I think it all comes down to, for me, like my number one value is to show women that they can do what they want, whatever that is in life, and for them to feel empowered. And I think when you're taking care of your health and wellness, it translates, like it trickles into every part of your life. You feel better, you have more energy, you're able to just give more because you are giving to yourself. And so whatever that looks like, whether it's someone that wants to compete as a CrossFit athlete or do a bodybuilding show or just be able to pick their kids up and have energy throughout the day, I want to support them and show them it's possible. So.
Yeah. Random question for you.
Yeah.
Give me kind of like excuses or insecurities that some of your clients have a hard time breaking the mold of from a mental point of view. Like what's the hardest thing for women or men? Because you said 4 months, right? You can see the results. Because obviously with fitness, it's a consistency thing. You're not going to see it next week.
Yeah.
And so what's some of the excuses that you see or insecurities that you see from a lot of people on like, they're just trying to work through it. They don't know if they can actually do it. And you have to like kind of coach them through or help them out.
I think a lot of people think it needs to be really complicated and really extreme to see results because they heard of their neighbor who's doing no carbs, or they heard of this other friend that, lost 50 pounds on some weird, I don't know, like meal plan.
Yeah.
And so just shakes only or whatever. Like there's all these just weird things. And I think when people trust and they're willing to sit like long enough, like, okay, I'm going to take 4 months, which is nothing really in the grand scheme of things, to implement some habits that are going to be sustainable for me with what I can do right now. And that usually looks like moderate changes in their life, but something that they can be consistent at. All of a sudden, they have a light bulb moment of, and it might even be like, I'm not eating less food. Now I'm eating more food, or I'm eating breakfast when I didn't used to do that. Or I'm just going for a walk every day. I'm getting outside. I'm drinking more water. I'm paying attention to my protein intake, like whatever it is that person needs. I'm implementing habits that are doable for me right now. And I'm able to build on those and find consistency there. They start to see that maybe they haven't lost that 30 pounds that they want to lose yet, but now they have more energy throughout the day. They feel better. Their self-confidence is up. They realize what they're capable of in the gym, and they build that trust within themselves. And that's my favorite thing as a coach to see, is when people truly, their quality of life is better.
Yeah.
And then maybe they do still want to lose that 30 pounds and they're working their way there. But I always tell clients when they come in, we could get you there in 3 months, but I don't really care to get you there in 3 months if that means you're going to not have that progress in a year.
Correct.
So I would much rather we take 6 months to get there, and a year from now you've maintained that because you have those habits in place and it's sustainable for you.
Yeah.
Then let's go hard at it, and then a year from now we've gained weight back, like we're in the same place.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, how do you create consistency with your clients on like, I think the hardest thing that I sit here and think about is the extreme diets happen because people get really overweight. Mm-hmm. But then they go on this, they lose a lot of weight, but it's not sustainable. Like you just can't live off shakes for the rest of your life. So like, how do you? And my wife is like the perfect example for me. Keely's really weird because like she knows what to eat, when to eat, and she knows when to be done eating. You know what I'm saying?
Just intuitively, like she's...
Yeah, like she's just like, I know my body. I've done the macros for so long.
Right.
Like I know I can't eat past X amount of time or eat this stuff, or, my body's just not in good shape. I don't feel good. Like as a man, I'm just like, we having dessert, honey, or not? Yeah. And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm getting some. So, and then it's always like, I want a bite. You know? Like, how do you create realistic habits with your clients? Does that make sense to where they don't do the extreme stuff and they can actually stay like in a consistent flow for life?
I think communication and knowing like their why helps as a coach, because I can talk to that. Like, okay, you want to lose 30 pounds, but why? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it means more confidence. Maybe I can, I envision more energy. Okay, so you want more confidence and more energy. So let's talk about how to start there. Like how, and then also, okay, optimal protein intake for you. Maybe that's 130 grams of protein. What are you eating right now? 70. Okay, well, we're not going to go to 130. We're going to go to 90. And let me show you how to do that right now. What does your day look like? Like, how many times are you eating throughout the day? Well, let's add a little bit more of that here. And just giving them realistic approaches. I'm not a fan of meal plans. We do have a dietitian on our team, so we could do them, but they don't, in my mind, they don't work because I'm giving someone something to follow, which, for one, our lives are dynamic. They're always changing, especially as parents. Like, we think we're going to eat dinner at home, but then we have all these other things. We got to get dinner on the go. And like,
correct.
We don't have as much control as, we'd like to have in our days always. And so following a meal plan doesn't make sense for most people.
Yeah.
And then for the ones that it does make sense for, maybe they just follow that meal plan to a T. They have results and then they're done. And what do they eat? They haven't learned anything.
Correct.
So I think the biggest impact we can have as coaches is education, teaching our clients the why. So on our, we check in with our clients with Hungry Fitness daily. And so daily interaction, and then weekly we'll do a video check-in because our clients are all over the world. So they'll go through all of their week, their struggles, all of their biofeedback throughout the week, like how things are going in regards to sleep, digestion, hunger levels, relationship with food, many things. And we'll look through that and then also look at progress and metrics there and send them, a 15-minute video talking through, okay, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what's going really well. Here's where I think we could maybe pivot or adjust. And then here's why, like explaining what's happening with their body. Okay, yeah, the scale is up right now from yesterday, but you are about to start your period. You're going to be retaining water, or you just started a new workout program. You're going to have some inflammation and water retention here. Being able to just explain those things.
Yeah. The people just don't understand.
Yeah. And they might think, oh, I didn't see progress this week.
How many of your clients are athletes?
Very few. Most of
like the majority of people haven't even gone through like crazy programs growing up or understanding or getting coached.
No, but the majority of our clients are women. I would say average in their 30s and 40s. That have been misled throughout their lives and think that, less food and more workouts is going to be the answer to getting the body that they want.
Yeah.
And so they're exhausted. They have a lot of negative adaptations that have happened, like in regards to metabolism and sex hormones, and they don't feel good. And so I think for a lot of them, it's a relief to hear, no, actually, you don't need to continue to eat less. Like, that's not going to be helpful for you to get where you want to be with your physique goals. Let's look at overall life stress. Like, how's your stress? How's your sleep? And where can we take some of that off and start to give back to your body so that you feel really good and are in a good place so that you can see those results for future.
Correct.
And so a lot of people that come in, we do need to spend some time like at their maintenance calories and just and build habits so that they have a good foundation to see.
Do you feel like a lot of like the heavy weightlifting that you've done helps women understand like, hey, it's good to actually lift? Yeah,
I think it's so funny to me to think that women could be afraid to lift just because I've spent a lifetime lifting weights. But I have heard throughout my lifetime women say like
you don't want to get bulky,
that they don't want to get bulky and big. And it always makes me laugh because if they knew the amount of time I've spent, and I put on muscle easier than most people just in general, but the amount of time I've spent like lifting at max loads over 20 years, like it doesn't happen by accident. You don't get bulky by accident. So I always tell women, let's just wait till you feel like that's happening, and then we'll adjust and let's just start. And I mean, the benefits from weightlifting, like physique aside, a lot of women think they want to look toned, right? Well, you have to have muscle to look toned. If we're just going to lose body fat, we're just going to be smaller. We're not going to actually see muscle under that if we haven't put it on. And so I think women will realize that at some point, and that kind of triggers them wanting to lift weights and build muscle.
Yeah.
But so maybe that's why they start. But having women just feel the benefits that they get from weightlifting is my favorite part of watching women lift, and why I have subscription workout programming, because the amount of women every day that are so excited about lifting heavier and like what they feel capable of is just my favorite thing in the world to
because like usually when you go into a gym, right, it's like all the girls go into the class and do whatever high fitness or whatever, which is great. It's cardio, good for them. But like you never really see them out there like squatting or doing a ton of curls or doing a lot of weight.
I think it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my goal with my workout program. So we have our coaching business, and then I also do subscription programming, and it's $20 a month. I just wanted it. Coaching is expensive. One-on-one coaching is an investment. And so I felt like, you know, not everyone can have a coach or hire a coach. And so I wanted the workout programming to be really doable for everyone, less than $1 a day. And for everyone, because I think women are really intimidated by weightlifting. And so I have videos for every movement. And then I have a 60-minute option for at home or at a commercial gym, a 30-minute and a 15-minute one. And so I have, you know, we have athletes, people that coming from competing in CrossFit doing our programming, and like my mom and dad do my programming.
Yeah,
so
it's
just
awesome.
Everything in between. So I just wanted to take the intimidation factor out for people. You just need dumbbells and resistance bands and you're good to go. If you have a barbell or you have more, like I give you more for that too.
Yeah.
But I wanted anyone to feel like they could start, whether that's 15 minutes or 60, like you're doing something for yourself every day that helps you feel empowered. And for me, I was just talking to my family members about mental health the other day and just different struggles, you know, each of them have had and different things. And I really feel like I know, like, I don't know very many things, but I know that the 20 years I've spent weightlifting and working out has kept me so much healthier mentally.
Correct.
Than anything I do.
But I think a lot of it too is like when I sit there and think about the same thing, like I look forward to going to the gym, and then you look forward to like what results can we get. And even though you like kind of sit stagnant for 5-10 years, like you know, you're not going to be like an underwear model for myself when I sit in a chair for 8 hours a day. But there's something where like you're looking forward to it. You're trying to be competitive in that atmosphere by yourself. You know, some days I walk in the gym and 4 people talk to me and I got to leave and go to work.
Right.
And I love that.
But you're showing up.
But I'm showing up.
For yourself.
But mentally, I feel like, again, I keep using the word escapism, but it's a place where you can go to escape and feel like do something by yourself to get better for yourself.
Well, and I think that's it. Like
it's not stressful. Like you're not going to work. You're not taking care of the kids. Like you're doing something completely different.
It might feel a little bit stressful at times, and I don't always want to go.
Yeah.
Even me, like I know the benefits. I don't always want to work out just because I have a big to-do list and I'm like, oh, I got to do other things.
Yeah.
But when I make it a priority, it's a chance to, and like you said, escape, but almost like you're present in your body. You're feeling what you're doing. And everything, whatever worries I have or whatever stressors I have when I walk into the gym or I walk onto the track or whatever I'm doing, when I leave, like everything feels, my perspective is just different. Like I'm able to zoom out and see, okay, whatever it is that felt like the end of the world when I walked in here, now I feel like I can handle it a little bit easier.
Love it. What's one big piece of advice you'd give to people that are looking to get started, but are like nervous about it, never been in that space, like maybe they've only done cardio, like they've never been trained by a personal trainer, but are looking for a different change, right? Because I think like the more I think about your program, the more it's more than just honestly like getting in shape.
Yeah.
Like there's so much to it by being able to talk to somebody, walk through it, understand stuff. I think it just gives you so much more confidence because you're like, oh, that's why I lift like that, or this is why I eat like that, or this is what I'm struggling with. That makes sense now. I've never thought of it that way. Like what's the one piece of advice looking back at like all these years of doing it that you'd probably give somebody that was like on the fence of should I do it or should I not do it?
Be willing to be a beginner at something and know that failure is part of growth.
Yeah.
And so when you fail, not if you fail, when you fail, like when you don't show up for yourself, or you had a plan and you don't follow through, just see it as an opportunity for growth. Like, okay, what happened here? Why didn't I get to the gym? How could I make that easier for myself next time? Maybe instead of 6 days a week trying to go, maybe I shoot for 3 days. And I'm just honestly just committing to 15 minutes. Like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to get on the treadmill and do my warm up. And if that's all that happens, I did something for myself today.
Correct.
Like, start small, have a plan. There's so much power in having a plan, whether it's, a workout subscription or just like Googling, I have a free sample week. There you go.
That's awesome.
Just get a free week of programming. Do that on repeat for 6 weeks. You don't have to change it up. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just choose 5 lifts and try to get better at those, and be willing to be a beginner. Know that everyone starts somewhere, and that's where the growth is. Like that process, just like, for me, competing at the games, like winning the games was so cool, but the process to get there was where all the growth was for me. And so
correct.
Be willing to enjoy the process of learning.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I hope what people take from this more than anything is you put in 10 years of consistency to get to the top of your game. Like, it wasn't like,
and I feel like I've got so far to go. So,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just pop in. I know you had some kids in there, so that obviously took a little bit longer to go be at the top of your game, but it takes time. Like, it takes a lot of time to be extremely good at what you're at. And I think
thousands of hours. And
And I think people nowadays just want to get rich quick scheme and get out, and it's like, it's not like that. Like, you got to be in the dirt. You got to do it for a long time. You've got to put in a lot of time and effort to get recognized,
Yeah.
What does the future look like for you? Have you thought about it much?
Hopefully we're living on a beach next year. That's my goal right now.
We were talking about that before.
But I think for me, just continuing to help women achieve their goals and show my kids that they can do whatever they want in life and think outside the box, and support them in what they're doing. That I have 2 9-year-olds now, an 8-year-old and an almost 5-year-old. And so being able to spend as much time like as a family adventuring and doing things together.
It's wild how fast it's going, isn't it?
It's so sad. I try not to. If I do the math, like, okay, you're 9, so in 9 more years, you'll be 18.
Yeah, they're gone, Michaela. They're done. I said that to Keely the other day when our oldest turned 8. I was like, oh my gosh, like, we're halfway through it with her.
I know.
And she like looked at me. She's like, don't say that. Yeah.
They're going to be around forever.
Yeah, I know, right? Then they're off to college.
I know.
Doing their own thing.
I know. And all of our kids, so we've got 3 so close in age. So they're all like, yeah, we're going to all go to the same school. We're going to live together.
Awesome.
I'm like,
that's awesome. How do you handle, this is probably my last question for you. Like, obviously Craig's been doing extremely well with development and real estate. You've been doing this. Like, how do you guys handle work-life balance? How do you guys communicate as a couple? How do you guys stay happy? You know what I'm saying? How do you handle the kids? Like, what does it look like? Obviously, you both are self-employed, so it gives you guys a little bit of freedom to be able to support each other. But I'm sure some days are like wild and crazy.
Oh yeah.
What's the marital advice with children? Both of you entrepreneurs doing your own thing. Like what's the advice there for a happy?
I can't speak for Craig.
Yeah.
But gosh, I am so proud of the life that we've built in regards to like partnering in marriage. Just because it's different than what we both experienced. We both had a little bit more traditional households, I guess, growing up. And so what we have created is, it just really feels like partnership. Like, he has a heavier workload. I'm doing more at home and with kids, and I have a heavier workload. He's doing more at home with kids. And it's fun to just know what the other one is doing and like appreciate them for that when they're sacrificing. Like, I think I had a meeting, or I had something that was work related that wasn't a huge deal, but it would be ideal to not have kids at it. And this was like a year ago, and he's like, well, it's fine. I got the kids. And come to find out, he was going to a city meeting for land development to get some piece approved. And our kids are like, he's up at the stand giving his presentation, and they're like causing chaos in the crowd. And I had no idea that's what he was going to, but he just, knew, oh, you have something going on for work. I got it. It's no big deal. And so I think just for one, having low expectations as far as trying to do things perfectly has helped. Like, we we're just doing our best. And then tuning in to each other, like when I feel like I'm at a breaking point, maybe with work or with kids, like somehow he's in tune enough to know like, I can take some things off your plate here and do that, and vice versa. And so I would say that's kind of my biggest advice, is like being willing to not identify with a role within parenting.
Yep.
Like it's not like that's your responsibility, that's mine.
Yep.
Being willing to have that be fluid so that we can just create what works for us.
Love it.
And I think that's different for everyone. And so being willing to just figure that out for ourselves has been so gratifying, and it's required a lot of communication and trial and error, but we're 15 years married this summer. So we're doing, our kids said, Craig asked me to be his Valentine yesterday, and our kids said they thought we were doing okay. So
that's so funny. That's awesome. No, but I appreciate your time. I mean, more than anything, like, this has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
I've wanted to know your story for a very long time.
It's been really cool to see everything you're doing too. So
no, thank you.
Yeah.
We're just getting started though.
Yeah.
See, I'm
That's
like,
how I feel.
I'm like 6 months into the 10-year run here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So hopefully something will come of this stuff one of these days. But no, I
I'd
appreciate
say
your
you're
time.
doing pretty well.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. So
Thanks for having me.
of course.